Give me a second.
This is just a podcast. This is not you giving an
No,
impromptu
I'm not
speech.
giving a speech, but I like to get a bit of air before I go on. I'll wait till you finish yawning. Doing your
I'm
fucking
done.
Hercules, like, look at my muscle thing, Mr.
I don't do that intentionally.
Working
That's
out.
just how I stretch.
All right. You're listening to episode 40 of Alternating with Eric. This week we're talking about why Ringo Lams' On Fire series of movies is special. I'm Connor.
And I'm Eric.
And we do a podcast on a number of geeky shit. From anime to manga.
That's
to
a great way of
whatever.
describing it.
Yeah. Well, that's what the official title is now on our new podcasting hosting server.
Yes. Alternating with Eric, where we just do geeky shit.
Yeah. So we used to be exclusively an anime and manga review podcast, and now we're breaching out.
I think we got bored at some point and just thought, hey, let's try something new.
Yeah, just doing something different. Well, there's only so many. I think the problem is, like, I don't watch that much new stuff. I watch maybe 2 or 3 new shows. You maybe watch 2 or 3 new shows. And then, aside from that, it's like nostalgia shows you'd be going back and watching. And after a while, it's like, well, we should really do some other stuff in between that if we're going to do that. Well, it's not that we'll never do anime or manga stuff again. I've definitely got some stuff we can do later on. But for now, we're just going to branch out and do some other things. And this week, we have a special series of movies directed by the late great, sadly, Ringo Lam, who we're going to talk about today. But as always, how have you been, Eric?
How have I been? Very busy this week. I've been trying to find time where I can just to kind of sit down, relax. So obviously, other than watching the Ringo Lam movies, I've been playing a few games here and there. So I've finally tried out a game I had downloaded a while back, but I hadn't had a go. Arma 3. Which is literally a military operation game simulator, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, but obviously it's much more fun when you're with people online playing, and those people are idiots and you mess everything up, which makes things equally fun. This is just my point of view from watching people play on their streams. Other than that, just kind of following up with my podcast with Chung last week. Me and him have been playing a few games of Magic the Gathering Arena, doing that, and yeah, just trying to beat each other and see who's better. So far, he's winning because, as he tells me time and time again, he's a ranked player, which means that you've bypassed every other genius out there and come out on some sort of high pedestal. And yeah, I mean, other than that, what else have I been doing? I've been trying to get to watching one of the not too recent, but not too recent anime called Vinland Saga.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna watch through that. It looks very interesting, and I do really like the animation style of it, especially since it's an animation style that's quite close to how that shows quite close to how people would usually fight. So really, the animation style is almost perfect to how to use for when people are fighting. Other than that, yeah, that's pretty much been my. I think
You're
that's
still
all
keeping up with your martial arts stuff as well.
Oh yeah, obviously I do that. I've been also getting a little bit into. Well, I've actually gone back to trying to study Shotokan and Kyokushin karate. So two different styles of karate. Although the Shotokan I'm studying more focuses on the kata, and Kyokushin is the practical application. So I've been looking into both of those, and it's given me a good opportunity to teach others as well. But yeah, that's been my week. What about you?
So, before I get into my week, I just want to thank again because I already thanked him actually when I posted the episode, but I want to thank Chung for filling in for me last week. I was up in Auckland. I hadn't planned that trip actually. Eric said I planned that trip. It was just sort of my mum had wanted to see me. She lives up there, so went and saw her, and I'll get a bit into that. But I want to just thank Chung for doing that. I had to mix and edit you guys when I got the show. I had no idea what you guys were talking about because they talked about magic and I know nothing about magic. So I was just listening, being like, "This is all gobbledygook."
Yeah,
And then I had to, yeah.
It's kind of like trying to explain what is it? Electrical networks to someone who knows nothing about electrical networking.
So I had to find a clip, by the way. I don't know if you listen to the episode. I had to find a little clip. So I took something from like a magic documentary or something and chucked it. It sort of explains the rules and stuff about it. I used that because there wasn't actually that many good like videos I could find that were like magic humor related or magic something that I could put like that we usually do. I usually put something humorous in the middle or something interesting.
Yeah.
And this time I was just like, screw it. I'll put in a bit of documentary footage. I was almost going to put in this really funny clip, but it's not really funny unless you have the whole context of the video. There's this clip of this guy talking about how satanic Pokemon cards games are and Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons. Which Dungeons, they're all made by the same people, I think, if I remember. They're all made by, at least the card game for Pokemon is made by, what are they called? You guys mentioned the name of the company.
Wizard of the Coast?
Yeah, they're made by Wizard of the Coast. Because they also do Dungeons and Dragons.
Sure.
Well, they do Dungeons and Dragons, I know that.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Another thing I have no idea about.
Dungeons and Dragons it's got two formats. One is a board playing game.
I vaguely know what it is. Like I know what a DM is and things like that, but I don't play Dungeons and Dragons. So.
And then the other format is that.
Yeah.
I find the board game much easier to follow than the other format.
Yeah. See, I've never done D&D, just not for me. So, but yeah, wanted to thank Chung for doing that. The episode is out, but one thing you may have noticed this week is, and we've briefly mentioned it a little bit at the start, we had to switch podcast hosting because a certain company who I've now ended tenancy with, and all our episodes are off their website now. So we basically had a podcasting server called Hushaka, and they're like Australian based, I believe. And we had all our episodes up there. We were with them for like a year and something. Then halfway through, before I ran this podcast, I had my other one on there. Halfway through, when I was putting my podcast on that one, they started to change their plan. They made a plan change. They said, "All right, you can only have this amount of episodes on the thing." So I had to make a separate account using a different email when we started our podcast to have our episodes up there because I couldn't have all of them up there, the two podcasts on the same thing. So I eventually had to put them onto two different, servers, essentially. And that was fine for a bit, but I noticed like their plans were not great. And I looked at their plans as well for the pay for plan. Because this week they got rid of, this week, I think it might have been last week or the week before, they just sent me an email saying, "Hey, we're completely getting rid of our free plan. We're going all pay for plans." And this would be fine, except I looked at how much they were going to charge us, and I believe it was like $20, which is how much, Eric?
$20. That would be about somewhere 30 plus dollars.
$30 here. So not expensive, but not cheap either. And when I looked at how much we got, so we apparently have something like... So we basically don't have unlimited episodes on our last one. When we were on Hushaka, we couldn't upload unlimited episodes. We couldn't have a certain amount of hours. I would actually have to delete like our back catalog of episodes to like make more room for our stuff if we were still on that. And if we went for the pay-for one, we would get a little bit more than what we got before, but we'd still be kind of limited. We would eventually get to a point where we would have to, again, pay some more dollars to get, and we'd have to keep doing that until we get a completely unlimited episode count. So that wasn't going to work for us, obviously. So I had to find something else. And so this isn't a sponsor. This isn't a plug. I'm not getting paid for this. But I want to thank Anchor, which I discovered recently. I think they're a US website or something like that. But all our episodes are up there now. Plus 2 of the episodes that couldn't be on our server because of the storage and episode count. So if you want to listen to the Armageddon video, like just the audio, which is kind of shit, you are welcome to. You can also listen to like the one video episode. There's now audio for that, which some people were like saying like, hey, where's episode, I think it was like episode 19. They're like, hey, where's episode 19?
What was episode 19 again?
So it was Monster and something else that we reviewed in that show. But basically, we only had the video up on YouTube, but now you can also listen to the audio for that. And all 40 episodes, including this one, that'll be out. There'll be 40 episodes now up there versus like what we had before, where it was just missing 2 episodes. The 2 video episodes, and one of the episodes has been joined and switched. But you'd probably only notice that if you've been listening to us from the start. If you're new, this isn't really gonna affect you too much, but. Basically, what this meant with all this podcasting stuff is it meant I had to spend at least 2 days because what I found is I thought I could copy our RSS feed from Hushaka, paste it into Anchor, and then all the old episodes would just be there, and then I can put the new one up. I thought, easy, simple. Not the case at all. I had to re-upload every single one of our episodes up. I had to remember what was typed in every single episode, so I am going to apologize. I did rush through at least 2 or 3 of them, so some of them just have what we reviewed, not like, in this episode we review. Instead, it might just say giant killing and such and such. But yeah, I had to go through every single one of our old episodes, and they're all up there. The only things that aren't up there that I've gotten rid of, because I figure you guys can just listen to them on YouTube if you want. They're not really episodes. All our bonus clip show episodes, if you want to listen to them, they're on the YouTube, okay? So if you want to listen to them, the bonus ones, they're there. There are no longer episodes on the official podcast Spotify page because they weren't really, they were all right, but they're outtakes and bonuses for a reason. So yeah, I had to spend a full 2 days getting that job done. And yeah, it was interesting going back and listening to some of our old catalog and getting some of the old episodes in. You'll notice if you go through some of our old episodes, we used to be called Alternating Sloth Podcast because I was doing the podcast by myself until Eric came on, and then. Then once he came on, we just decided to change the title to Alternating with Eric because Eric became like basically a permanent host. And this is more sort of his show a little bit now as well. So I figured, because you do sort of on the YouTube page as well. It's both of us shared. So he's basically a co-owner of this this business. But yeah. So I had to do that this week. I was in Auckland last week visiting family, and saw a couple movies when I was up there on the old Netflix, and actually went to the movie theater, which I hadn't done in a while. I went and saw a movie called Minari, which is like a Korean American movie. It was sort of interesting, really well acted, but a little bit boring. Like really boring middle act.
What was the name of it?
Minari, I think that's what it's called. It stars Steven Yeun from The Walking Dead. So yeah, it's about like a Korean family in America in like the 80s. So the premise was really interesting, but the actual execution was a little bit boring. So I watched that. I watched a movie called The Dig, which is so boring. I don't want to shit on it because it had some really good actors and it wasn't terrible. Like, it was just such a boring story. It was so boring. My mum walked out of we're watching on Netflix, and my mum just got up and she's like, "I'm going to bed. I'm tired."
That is incredible.
And I was like, "Mum, you usually like these period drama type," because it was like a British period drama type thing about excavation, sort of like they're digging like the ship.
What?
So yeah, it sounds fascinating, but really boring.
Sorry, fascinating for who exactly?
It was like interesting. My mum likes archaeology and stuff. Like she told us she wanted to be like an archaeologist at one point.
Yeah, but there's a difference between archaeology and being a dig site manager. Like a big difference.
Yeah. Well, he's an archaeologist. It was Rafe Fiennes and Kerry Mulligan. So two actors I like very much, being very like giving good performances, but it's very boring, very typical. I was actually a little bit disappointed to see Kerry Mulligan in it because I like seeing her in other things because she's done so many of these like period dramas where she's just kind of the like stoic, kind of strong, but woman who's trying to hide that maybe she's sick or something. Like she's played that type of character so much, and I'm always happy to see her sort of go against type. So I was a little bit disappointed seeing her playing the exact same type that she's sort of played in the past. But she wasn't doing a bad performance. Rafe Fiennes was actually doing a different accent than what he usually does, and he was really good. And the movie was just kind of meh. But so we watched that. A good movie we watched though, and Eric, you should probably check it out. It's a little bit rushed at the ending, but we watched a movie called The White Tiger. It's really good. It's like an Indian movie. It's in English and in Hindi, I think.
Okay.
And it was pretty good.
I thought you were going to mention that it's a Russian movie because there's a Russian movie with the same title.
No. It's an Indian movie, and it's quite good. It's about like a guy who's like he's like a servant, but he basically they basically call him. He's like a driver, helper sort of guy to like this. They don't say mob, but they're definitely like the Indian mob type people. They're like this gang, and he basically is their driver. He gets them stuff. He does stuff for them, and it's all about like him trying to get out of that. And it actually has like an interesting sort of. It is interesting. It is a little bit I enjoyed it. It's not super like violent, super things. There's one or two scenes here or there, but it's other than that, it's a pretty smooth sailing kind of. But it was good. It was really good acting. Was not I haven't seen that many Indian movies, and I feel like I should probably give more of them a go. I remember trying to watch one thing on Netflix and then realized halfway through it was a Bollywood movie, like a Bollywood musical, and I was really disappointed because it was like a sword like a sword type drama thing, like a war movie, and you probably agree with me on this. Those movies of like that period is fascinating. Like it was like the you'd probably know more about it. Like Prince. I don't want to say Prince of Persia because I don't know exactly that, but it's like India and the area that's sort of right next to it, like them getting in like a big war, and the war scenes were awesome. But then halfway through, there's these like weird musical numbers, and there's a wedding, and I'm like, what the? It's like what were we watching? And I was watching
Bollywood. Welcome to Bollywood.
Yeah, I was watching this with this older friend of mine, and we thought it was going to be like an Indian war drama. We're like, oh, this would be cool. We're gonna see some blood, some fighting. And then I remember there wasn't much blood, and it was there was lots of fight at the start, and there's just none. It just went all to musical numbers. I was like, oh, fuck this. So yeah, check out White Tiger. It's on Netflix. It's pretty good. I enjoyed that. Also, really happy about this because I saw this on Netflix. Spectacular Spider-Man, the TV show, the best animated Spider-Man TV show.
The Spectacular Spider-Man's on Netflix?
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Yes.
Oh, thank God we got another fan here of it. Best version of Spider-Man. I'm sorry, Ultimate Spider-Man.
I really like because it was on comic books, right?
Comic books.
Was it a Spectacular Spider-Man? Was it came out on comic books before?
Yeah, no. There was a comic book called Spectacular Spider-Man, but it's not really based on that. It's sort of got elements of Ultimate Spider-Man and other versions.
Yeah, that's right.
But I like it because it kind of mixes them well and does a good
Yeah,
job.
yeah,
And it's
yeah.
got a lot of elements actually from Ditko and then Stan Lee's one a little bit as well.
Yeah.
And they always kind of tend to, but this one I think even more so in some elements. But I really enjoyed that TV show, and I'm so happy it's up there because I think Netflix, I've noticed recently, like they've put on a bunch of Marvel related stuff that's Sony Marvel, which makes me think that maybe the Sony Marvel deal is that Sony can release stuff on like Netflix, like the first Spider-Man Homecoming is on Netflix,
Yeah.
but not the second one because of the deal, because now Marvel completely owns Spider-Man, the character. But anything before then, like you can't watch the Tobey Maguire movies. I don't think you can on Disney Plus, but you can watch them on Netflix because they're Sony movies. They're not Marvel movies. Even which is weird because Marvel owns, Marvel is like the character, but technically it's the Sony license,
Yeah.
And Spectacular Spider-Man falls under that as well because I think it was a Sony show. And then the Marvel Sony thing happened, and that's why you didn't get a second season of Spectacular Spider-Man. And instead you got, you didn't get instead you basically got that Ultimate Spider-Man TV show, which is okay. It was all right. I was a bit disappointed with it because it's a little bit more of like an Avengers / Spider-Man show sort of thing, It's like it's like a modern version of it. If anyone's seen Spider-Man and his amazing friends, it's basically like that, where it's Spider-Man teaming up with like different people each week. But yeah, I was happy to see that, and that's sort of what I've been up to basically for this week.
Nice. Yeah, I'm quite happy when you mentioned Spectacular Spider-Man's on Netflix, so I'll be going on and watching that.
Oh, hell yes. It's a great show.
And yeah, so we're gonna take a break now?
Yeah, we're gonna take a break now.
Sweet, so
and we'll be right back after the break with our special on Ringo Lams' series of On Fire movies.
Reservoir Dog, definitely, that is a very good movie. If Tarantino once he watched City on Fire, he got the story concept, was the character concept, no big deal, very natural. But in that movie, Reservoir Dog, it's not a copy. He did the movie actually something different. Even the style is different.
And we're back with Alternating with Eric, and we're here to start our review of the On Fire series by Ringo Lam. So, to start us off, Connor here is going to talk about the director himself and why he's special and what makes him special enough to make On Fire series.
Just one clarification I want to bring up. So the On Fire movies, the reason we're doing them is there are technically 4.
Yes.
And we're not counting the sequels because I know there is a Prison on Fire 2 sequel. But there's 4 On Fire movies. There's, I don't know if I'll do them in order, but City on Fire, School on Fire, Prison on Fire, and Sky on Fire. All 4 of these movies are directed by Ringo Lam. They tend to have some similarities, and they tend to all sort of be, I'll get into it as I talk more about Ringo Lam. So Ringo Lam is a Hong Kong film director. He sort of makes... His movies are kind of John Woo-y. They're not the same sort of... he makes the same type of movies as like John Woo. Sort of 80s action movies. He's also worked with Chow Yun-fat a lot, kind of like John Woo.
Yeah.
And he's also a producer and a screenwriter. So he was born in Hong Kong in 1955, and then he went to, I believe, an acting school for a while, found he liked directing, and he went and studied in Canada for a while. And I think him actually studying in Canada is why his film making style is a little bit different, a little bit more sort of American than some of the other directors around his time period. But yeah, and in 1983 he returned after his studies and he began making movies again, And he sort of made this comedy movie called let me see if I can. So it's called something else in the West. I think it's called Mad Something 4 or something like that. But it's called Aces Go Places 5. I think that's the title.
That was 4, right?
Aces Go Places 4. Sorry, I didn't see that little I in front of it.
Or Main Mission 4.
Yeah, Main Mission 4. And that movie got him some traction, got him some popularity. I found it kind of funny that part of that movie is filmed in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So I may have to check it out. And then he was allowed to sort of develop his own movies. And he wanted to do something a bit more serious because when he was doing that, he was just sort of going with the system. And so at I believe this was 1987, he started the On Fire first movie in that series, which was City on Fire in 1987, which led him to winning his first ever Hong Kong Film Award. And that obviously got him really big out in the film scene. And yeah, he's been... Oh, I copied my notes twice on this. But yeah, he's been doing this for a long time, and he passed not that long ago. I think it would have been maybe last year. I think he passed. But I was very sad to hear that news because he's a very good director, and he's done a bunch of other movies outside of the On Fire movies that I just want to briefly mention here. Full Contact's a really good movie. It's kind of like it's an American style movie made by a Hong Kong film director. It has all sort of the tropes and things you'd think of in that. And I think it was made because they were just like, well, we can't get films made in America in the 80s about us. So why don't we just put Chow Yun-fat, make him like an American style action star, and make a and Full Contact is awesome.
Yeah, and we all know those kinds of tropes. First biggest one, it's set in Hong Kong. Second biggest trope.
Well, part of it's set in Hong Kong, part of it's in Thailand, I think.
So it's got to be at least set in Hong Kong. The next trope is the star has to be either a policeman or he's part of the gang.
Yeah. Well, that's more the Hong Kong. I mean this is more the American trope. So he's like in that movie he is like he's funnily enough, he's not written like a modern American, like an 80s sort of star. He's written more like not even a Clint Eastwood, like a I would sort of say he's like a biker gang sort of type guy, kind of like there's a movie with Marlon Brando where he's like a biker gang sort of leader. That's the way I would describe it.
Maybe like a kind of what is it? Like a I don't know, street red type of James Bond.
Yeah, not James Bond. James Bond. I would say he's like the Fonz or something. You know, he's that cool guy, like the biker gang, the titty boy type thing. Yeah, and he's he's kind of a badass sort of guy, and he's got a couple girls on the side, that sort of thing. And then you have I can't remember his name, but Simon Lamb, I think his name is, and he's kind of our he is kind of like a Bond villain a little bit or something. He's he's a little bit of like that sort of villain that it's kind of an sort of under the surface there's maybe a bit of a sexual tension or something. There's a bit of that going on. A bit kind of like the villain in Skyfall, Javier Bardem's sort of like that type of villain. So that was a bit of a different movie. He wanted to try and do something like that. He also did a movie with Chow Yun-fat, I think, after City on Fire, which was that I want to mention here too, Wild Search. I personally kind of like it, but it is kind of a generic cop sort of thing. It's a remake of the movie Witness, which featured Harrison Ford. If you've seen that movie, it's essentially the same thing, just set in Hong Kong. But it has a lot of the same people from the On Fire series. And it's a bunch of people. The things that make the On Fire series distinct is they're usually kind of a dark commentary on something in society. So City on Fire is about sort of the police, corruption in the police, the criminal system, how the police are dealing with it, the undercover system, that sort of thing. Then you get Prison on Fire, which is about like the corruption in prisons, what prisoners have to go through. And then you've got School on Fire, which is about how the way I would describe it is it's less about it is a little bit. It's less about sort of corruption and more about how underpowered people are to the gangs in Hong Kong, and how the police can't do much, and how the schools can't do much.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of corruption, a little bit in there with the school system and how they're sort of dealing with things. And so those are usually the under the surface themes in the series of films, and they always feature sort of the same type of players, the same type of actors.
Yeah.
Chow Yun-fat's in Prison on Fire 1 and 2. He's in City on Fire. And then I might mispronounce his name, but I think his name's Elvis Sui. He's in City on Fire. He's in Prison on Fire. Probably one name who we might not mention that much, but Eric, you've definitely seen him. His name is Joseph Chi. I call him Crazy Fish-Eyed Dude. You definitely know who this guy is. He's got these crazy big eyes, and he's usually like he's part of the robbery group.
Yep.
And he's one of the gang hoods in School on Fire, and I believe he's also in Prison on Fire as like one of the prisoners.
He's one of the characters I hope would die soon.
Yeah.
And
he's also in Wild Search, which is Chow Yun-fat as well. So not an On Fire movie, but he's in another Ringo Lam movie. And so you'll definitely see him a lot. But the MVP of all these movies, I've briefly talked about this with Eric before we got on, is fucking Roy Chung, who is in all of the On Fire movies, and every single one of them, he is a fucking scumbag or an asshole. He is somewhat likable, but he's always kind of a dick. Like he's a police officer you just want to punch in the face. In City on Fire,
yeah,
School on Fire, he is like the worst person ever. There's something sort of likable at him at first, like he was
brother.
Cool,
he was a brother Smart, wasn't he?
Yeah, brother Smart.
Little Smart.
But he is like you want to see him get murdered, and you kind of hate him by the end of the movie. And then in Prison on Fire, he is just like he's this terrible prison guard.
He's a corrupt prison guard.
Yeah, he's a corrupt prison guard, and he's always a bit cheeky. He's always a bit cocky in all of these movies. With the exception of City on Fire, where he's just a very stern asshole, and you're just like, Jesus, I want to fucking slap that guy.
He's a bit of a reckless. He was a reckless police officer, and I enjoyed watching Chow Yun-fat's uncle in that movie get a brick and smack him over the head.
Yeah. So spoilers, we are gonna like spoil the fuck out of most of these movies. You should definitely check them out. So before we even get into the movies, just because I want people to see them, I am going to put a big spoiler tag here. Go watch. So we're going to recommend the free ones. Go watch City on Fire. Go watch Prison on Fire. School on Fire is really hard to find. So I'm sorry about that, but you should see if you can find a copy of it. All three of these movies are great. We do have our own we're gonna get into some of the issues we have, some of the things we like about them, but generally all three of these movies are pretty good.
Yeah.
So I think I've talked enough. Let's get into City on Fire. Eric, why don't you tell us what City on Fire is about, and then tell us some of your thoughts on it.
So, City on Fire revolves around Chow Yun-fat's character Lao. No, sorry, it's Ko Chow. Lao was his undercover name.
Yep.
Who has to investigate a group of robbers who are targeting jewelry stores. And what he's trying to do is, with the help of his uncle, sneak in and be a part of the group and try and find a way to get him incriminated and sent to jail. And so Chow Yun-fat's character in this is rather he's not exactly a difficult character to understand. He's just really has a lot of bad luck. So he's got stress from the undercover job. He's got stress from having to keep his girlfriend happy and get married to her. He's got stress from just dealing with his own family life. His uncle, while a good guy who helps him with his undercover mission, is also appears to be a raging alcoholic. As with all cop movies, there's always a raging alcoholic somewhere. And so that's the main synopsis of the movie. And it's as Connor mentioned, this does revolve around a lot of, I wouldn't say police corruption, but
it's a little bit in there.
There's slight, but yeah, you're right. There
like
is
police
some.
brutality is definitely in
Yeah.
there. There's definitely a very prominent scene where Chow Yun-fat, who has now, they've definitely said he's an undercover cop, and they know he's an undercover cop, and they still think he's the bad guy, and so they beat the shit out of him, and they almost like break his arms, and you're like, Jesus, like
There's definitely a overexertion of
over abuse of
force.
power.
Overexertion of power when it comes to the police forces, which is not exactly surprising considering China's laws around capital punishments were pretty much you're free to do what you want. I think they were implemented in the 80s, so this falls in what the actions we see in those movies fall in line pretty well with what may have been okay in China during that time. So I'd say even though Hong Kong is autonomous from China,
especially in the 80s, when
yeah,
it was a British colony, I think, then.
I think the British abandoned it sometime in the 90s. So I can't remember exactly
Well, this
when.
movie's 87, so this is probably right before then.
Yeah, but there's still a lot of influence from the Chinese government in Hong Kong, obviously. So yeah, so kind of looking into this movie, you already see a crap load of trouble coming to Ko Chow when he's trying to do his job.
Yeah.
And even though he says this is dangerous as hell, I want to quit, which we sympathize because he's been forced to do things like sell guns to these robbers to find a way to get him to stop robbing and just get him arrested.
Well, we should also talk about why he's been assigned to this job as well. We see at the very start of this movie that another undercover agent who has like the worst rat tail mullet. I'm sorry, that's just the one thing I noticed.
Yeah.
Gets like brutally stabbed in the chest by. I'm pretty sure it's by that fisheye dude I mentioned at like the start of this.
No, it was a different character.
Oh,
actually. Yeah.
But yeah, he gets murdered by someone, and then basically Chow Yun-fat has to come in and sort of basically take over, which is like one of the reasons why I think he's also very nervous and a bit like skeptical about doing this job.
Sorry, what?
I was just saying I think that's why he's very skeptical about doing the job. But what did you think about just like the movie in general? What were some things you noticed? What were some things you liked, didn't like?
Definitely the things I like were the topics around the corruption and the law system, because this was the late 80s. Ringo Lam seems to take a more realistic approach to how things are handled and how things are seen by the law and by criminals in this sense. I don't really like a few of the characters, so definitely Ko Chow's girlfriend, aka if you don't marry me, I'm gonna run away with this rich businessman to Canada and you won't ever see me again. And then spoiler alert, and at the end it turns out she decides she doesn't.
She goes to San Francisco, doesn't she?
No, she lands in Hawaii, changes her mind, and then waits for Ko Chow to come pick her up. And I'm like, really? Really?
Okay.
No, you stay in Hawaii.
So the biggest thing, I was pissed off with that too, because one thing that annoyed me with that I want to bring up as well is I thought she knew he was undercover. Not in this job, but I'm pretty sure she was aware that he was an undercover cop.
Yeah, she was aware.
And so I was surprised she wasn't just like, because I thought she was undercover. That's what I always assumed.
No. She was
for undercover stuff.
She was just like I guess what
like
the
a hostess girl, I think. Don't say simping or something or whatever.
She was just desperate. She was just desperate. Oh, she wasn't a hostess girl even.
Because I don't think she was banging these guys. I think she was just using it for free drinks and stuff.
Yeah, I think. Oh, was she?
Yeah, because I think her job was to actually be a hostess at these bars and stuff. That's what it looked like to me, at least.
Yeah, it wasn't very clear about what her job was.
Yeah,
but it was certainly wasn't as fun as being an undercover cop.
It was kind of weird that there was just another girl there as well. I was like, is Chow Yun-fat and like has he got two girls in this movie? Is he in
no, the other girl was a friend of hers, of the wife.
See, that was good. I couldn't tell if it was like a sister or a friend or like they're in a three-way sort of relationship. Like
no way.
But yeah, no, Yeah, my only problem was like, don't you know he's an undercover? You should be like, your boyfriend's gonna be dead if you keep on asking. Like, there's a lot of times where it's just like you should be a bit more understanding of the situation. But whatever, I'm not gonna hate her. She did a decent job for the part she got given. I feel like she's supposed to be a little bit annoying and a little bit, so she's doing a good job with her role. So, that wasn't But what were some other things maybe you didn't like? I've definitely got some things that I had some problems with the film. You mentioned you didn't like some characters. Was it just her, or was there anyone else?
So there was her. There was the who else was there?
Roy Chung?
Definitely no, not Roy Chung. Roy Chung, I think, was a good character.
Yeah.
To involve in this. The character I didn't like was the police chief, I guess.
Yeah. Well, he didn't have much to do. That was the main thing as well.
And but just kind of the nonchalantness he had about when trying to deal with the problems there. It was like, oh shit, who do I choose? Who do I choose? Who do I choose? Like it was like flipping a coin in his head, going, okay, what heads I choose the uncle, tails I choose the other guy. It was like, fuck, man, could you please do this a bit smarter? Like, how dangerous undercover. He doesn't seem to have understood how dangerous undercover cop work was.
Yeah.
And what else didn't I like about it? I guess. Oh, there are a few things, but I'll let you have a go and see if we align.
Okay, so I'll talk about some things I like. So I like I definitely like the look of the movie. Like it's definitely shot very well. I like generally for like it looks really great. Chow Yun-fat has some really good moments of charisma and being sort of funny, but then also being super serious. The one problem though with the actually before I get into that, the other thing I want to touch on is, and I can't remember the name of the actor. I think I've got it. Yeah, Danny Lee, who's in this movie. So Danny Lee is in another movie of Chow Yun-fat called The Killer, and in that they sort of switch roles. In this, Danny Lee is he's one of the guys in the gang, and he wears sort of a jumper that's zipped up. And in The Killer, he's like a police cop, and Chow Yun-fat is the sort of hitman for hire type thing. So they switch kind of roles. In this, though, Chow Yun-fat's the cop, he's the bad guy. And what we find out that I thought was kind of interesting is in this movie, we find out that there's more than one robbery in this. There's two robberies in this. And in the first robbery, this guy, Danny Lee's guy, he shoots a cop, like just straight in the face. No problem, just zips up his jumper, and they've got a profile of him, and it's just a zipped jumper guy. And for a while, Chow Yun-fat doesn't know that this is, the same guy, and they really bond, and they almost become friends. And then you see the look of shock on his face when he realizes who this guy is, and they have like kind of a I wouldn't. So I'm gonna make some comparisons to another movie in a couple minutes that's similar to this, but they have kind of a mentor sort of relationship, not quite a father son relationship, but that I'll get into in another comparison. But they have kind of a mentor, that they younger, older senpai kopai, if you want to use that knowledge.
Senpai kopai.
Yeah, kind of similar to that. And you see them like really get along, and Danny Lee's like, you need to get out of this situation, we'll do this job and then you'll leave. And Chow Yun-fat's like, oh, cool, he's looking out for me, he's a good guy. And then when he finds out about the zipper thing, he's like, oh shit, should I trust this guy? But he's already in too deep, and he even shoots a cop at one point. Yeah. Which is like, like at that point, he's like, well, can he go back? He literally just like shot a cop. And then, we get to the final scene of the movie, and he reveals he's a cop, and this is where, okay, so I in a minute I'm going to talk about Reservoir Dogs, because Reservoir Dogs is literally a remake of this. Actually, no, I'll talk about Reservoir Dogs because I can talk about my complaint when I talk about Reservoir Dogs as well. So Reservoir Dogs, Tim Roth essentially plays Chow Yun-fat's role. It's the same sort of role as an undercover cop, except in this movie they focus more on the actual planning of the heist. In City on Fire, it's more about sort of the heist itself, and then the aftermath of the heist. And there is a little bit of planning, but it's it's not all the gang together planning. We obviously get more backstory, the undercover stuff with Chow Yun-fat. There's less of that with Tim Roth and that, yeah. And the movie in itself, the relationship is different because Harvey Keitel, who plays the Danny Lee, the zipped up sweater guy, in this movie, he is more of a they have more of like a father-son relationship. He even like kind of cradles him and holds him as because both characters, both Chow Yun-fat and Tim Roth, get shot at the end of the movie, and they both, I believe they both die, but they both die in very well. Tim Roth may or may not die at the end of the movie, but both of them get shot. Chow Yun-fat gets shot kind of in the gut. Tim Roth gets shot like almost near the groin at the movie, and he's bleeding out for fucking ages. And yeah, they have like a very father-son sort of, he cradles him, he holds him, he, tries to be very nice to him. And there's 2 scenes in both of these movies where the character, the undercover cops reveal themselves to be the rat, and the whole thing.
Yeah.
And the reaction is so different. In City on Fire, he's kind of upset, but at the same time, he's not angry. He's not really, crying or anything. He's just a little bit upset. In Reservoir Dogs, oh my God, it is like heart-wrenching. Like Harvey Keitel, you see him like, he is so good at crying like pathetically, and like he's like, oh shit, I gave up like my name, I'm fucked. But at the same time, like I've killed 2 of my friends to save this guy, I'm screwed. Like, and there's because there's a similar scene in City on Fire where he is like threatening one of the other guys in the gang who thinks Chow Yun-fat's the rat, and he's trying to defend him, and Harvey Keitel's the same thing, but the difference is Harvey at the end of the movie is almost thinking of actually killing Tim Roth's character. Danny Lee, like, it's too late. Chow Yun-fat basically dies at the end of the movie. And the biggest difference as well is Tim Roth doesn't shoot a cop in this movie. He shoots just a regular civilian who pulls a gun out on him. Shoots him in the groin. He pulls out his gun, shoots the lady in the car. Doesn't say I'm an undercover cop or anything, just shoots, I'd also say that Reservoir Dogs is actually a little bit rougher in some places. There's no torture scene in City on Fire. I know we talked about the cop one where he's getting, beaten up, Chow Yun-fat's getting beaten up by other cops, but there's no scene of someone's ear getting taken off to stuck in the middle of you. Which is and I'd say that there's like they don't have like an iconic outfit, or there's a bit more style to Quentin Tarantino's version of this movie, which it is kind of its own movie because it does the actual bunker that they're in at the end of the movie is a lot bigger. One of the characters actually gets out, like Steve Buscemi's character, Mr. Pink, who's kind of like, I guess you could call it, he's like the crazy-eyed dude, kind of like in City on Fire. And there's a lot of off-screen stuff. There's not a lot of showing the actual robbery. So those are like sort of the big differences. But the big thing I want to mention here that I had a big problem with, Eric, is I would say that Reservoir Dogs has a bit of a better ending and is a lot less cheesy. I thought City on Fire was very cheesy. There's even a really good action scene that's kind of ruined by the fact that there's a sax player outside the bank, and they just have this like crazy saxophone music, 80s Kenny G shit going on while they're doing a bank robbery. And it just made the movie a little bit too cheesy for me. And the ending as well, I thought was just too cheesy, where Chow Yun-fat's just dancing like on the screen after he's sort of like died. So yeah, I'm rambling a bit here, but that's my thoughts on City on Fire. So now that we've sort of said what we've said about that, I'm gonna let Eric talk about. Let's go on to Prison on Fire, Eric.
So Prison on Fire, that is now going from the law and I guess police cop corruption to prison corruption, and this is one I found.
Okay, we're gonna take a slight.
We good?
Yeah, sorry, we had a slight technical issue. I think I woke Eric up though because he was looking like he was falling asleep during my last conversation.
No, I was a little scared. I was a little scared that.
But you were dozing off when I was talking about Reservoir Dogs.
Oh no, I was trying to make sure that I tuned out when you were spoiling Reservoir Dogs. 'Cause I do want to see Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, sorry, man. Okay.
Yeah, I
didn't
tuned out.
realize.
I tuned out the parts you were spoiling about, so that I can actually watch
Okay,
Reservoir Dogs.
Okay. You can still watch it and enjoy it, even knowing the ending, because it's the same as some
Oh,
parts of it. But
sometimes.
anyways, Prison on Fire. Let's
Right,
get
Prison on Fire focuses on the prison corruption system, or rather, the prison system itself in Hong Kong. So, oh no, actually, mainland China. So, I had a look around at this, and by the looks of it, the prison is set in China.
It's a real prison as well.
Yeah. So, looking into that, I looked just a little bit into the prison system of China back in the 80s, and from what I gathered, there was a president or highest ranking government authority, whatever they wanted to call it, introducing a capital punishment as part of the prison system. So basically, watching this movie, you can see a lot of that happening. But just to kind of summarize, so the Prison on Fire movie focuses on two of the characters. One is played by Chow Yun-fat. The other, I can't remember his name.
The other Tony Leung, who is not in Wong Kar-wai movies.
Yeah, that's the one. So Tony, is it Tommy or Tony?
You can just call him not Chow Yun-fat. I don't know.
I'll call him Tony. So Tony plays a character who's also sent to the prison, but he's sent on manslaughter charges.
Yeah.
As it turns out, manslaughter charges include chasing after 4 guys who beat up your dad and accidentally kicking one of them into the middle of the road to get run over by a truck.
Yeah.
Which I can assume is fair to the Chinese law system as being something you can charge someone with manslaughter. But anyway, so the movie goes through this guy's life and how he tries to, I guess, assimilate to the prison life and tries to get around the system.
How he becomes friends as well with like Chow Yun-fat and their friendship and getting to know him more as a character, because there's definitely some stuff we can talk about his character.
And I like the Prison on Fire movie better than the rest because of that unique outlook into how to survive in a prison, because it's not just about, a serious, gritty, and sort of, dark look into this. There's some light themes to, how to survive in the place.
I'm going to say this. This is the biggest thing I'd say it has over City on Fire for me. Way less cheesy. You agree with me on that? Way less cheesy. Like, it's not 80s cheese.
No, there's not a
just
lot
a
of
good,
80s
solid
cheese
movie.
there. Yeah. There's Chow Yun-fat's character is literally Chow Yun-fat. Almost no changes. I think he's
we'll get into some
one thing I have noticed is that there's definitely, with the settings, Chow Yun-fat in City on Fire is definitely playing a much happier character.
I would say
than Prison on Fire.
I don't know if you agree with me on this, but I have always thought Chow Yun-fat is like the Brad Pitt of Asia, where Brad Pitt does play different characters, but there's always a little bit of him in there, and he's always kind of the pretty boy Floyd sort of type. And Chow Yun-fat's a little bit of that in every movie as well.
No, that's quite agreeable. But one thing I will one thing, I'll follow on from what I said, in that the character that Chow Yun-fat plays is noticeably happier in City on Fire than in Prison on Fire.
Yeah.
In Prison on Fire, there is a happiness, but that it's not all real. It's more of a survival instinct for.
Well, he's been there a while. That's the thing we get from him straight away.
And you can already see how he understands, how conflict works and how it all plays out in the prison system. And also, even back then, snitches get stitches is a very, very common conception in the prison life. And Chow Yun-fat. I was getting that name mixed up. Chow Yun-fat's character is always telling the other guy, don't say anything, don't rat him out, don't, complain to the warden, don't complain to Roy, he's an ass. Chow Yun-fat was actually trying to be helpful, For all the times he was being a cocky little smartass, he was like, mate, I'm a friendly guy, friendly enough to help you.
Yeah.
Do not piss off that guy. Do not tattle on this guy. And if the warden asks you any questions, you just say you saw nothing.
Yeah.
So it was so following on through, that's what most of the movie's been about. And so looking into the ending of the movie was a little interesting debate that me and Con have had previously, but I think we'll get on to that debate after he puts in his...
very intense ending. That's the
Yeah.
one thing I would say. Okay, so actually, School on Fire is almost competing with the intensity of that ending.
Oh, hell yeah.
But it's School on Fire is like you're happy at that ending. Prison on Fire is shocking and
Really? I was not happy at the end of School on Fire.
We'll
Like,
talk
at
about
all.
that. I'm not talking like happy. You're like happy at what's happening to a certain character at the ending of.
Happy at what's happening to certain
But
character, but
Prison
overall...
on Fire, you're just like, what the fuck? What the fuck? You're just like, oh god, like. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So the biggest thing I noticed when I watched this movie for the very first time, which I'm surprised Eric didn't mention, because Eric, did this prison look similar? Did you think you've maybe seen this in another movie? Another Hong Kong movie that also has a prison in it?
President. Oh God, no.
Because this is the same prison from Ricky-O.
Oh God, no.
I'm not kidding. The exact same prison. And so when I watched this the first
Wait,
time...
are you sure it's the
Yes,
same prison?
Exact prison. It's called Lao something. I can't remember what it's called, but it's called Lao something. Same prison.
What?
Same prison. And it's even got the warden from Ricky-O, I believe, is also in this movie, or in one of the other City on Fire movies. But I remember watching this movie for the first time and thinking, this prison looks very similar. And once I realized that, I almost couldn't get into the movie for a little bit. I almost couldn't take it seriously because it's like, that's the same area that dude did that. That's the same area that. I mean, after I got past that part, I just wanted to mention that because that made me laugh a little bit when I was watching the movie for like the first time.
Oh, why? That's I can't believe it. Is that? Are you sure?
Yes. Yeah.
That's
100%
unbelievable.
sure.
Because there's some settings in it that I don't remember between them, but that's main. I guess that's no two movies will ever show the same scenes of the prison. Yeah. The same way.
So the main things. So I did actually also watch the sequel to this, and the sequel for this, I would say, don't even watch it. It's basically the same movie essentially, but Chow Yun-fat is more of the focus, and it's almost got some of the same plot points beat for beat. There's a corrupt security guard. There's a prisoner that Chow Yun-fat is helping out. Chow Yun-fat kind of attempts an escape. That's the only difference. Which I kind of have a problem with because I think, and maybe you'll disagree or agree with me on this, I think by the end of the movie and parts of the movies, I think the movie really shows you that Chow Yun-fat actually belongs in that prison and actually should be there and needs to be there. And a part of him I could see does want to get out, but there's part of him as well that's kind of gotten used to the system, that knows how to work it. And you can sort of see like, well, what will I do when I get out? Yeah, I've got my son here, you find out. But then as you go through the movie, you find out he murdered his wife. And at first you're like, well, maybe it was an accident. Maybe he didn't do it. Then we get to more further in the movie and you're like, no, he probably did. And this guy is probably not like a fully sane guy from what we,
And I mean,
I don't know if I want to touch on the parts of the ending yet, but
I can understand what you mean because there's two sides you can agree on. One is Chow Yun-fat's in there because he has issues that has led him to killing his own wife.
Yeah.
On the other hand, because of the probably long sentence he's had time to stay in an environment that he's gotten so used to. So it may be that he himself doesn't want to leave because he's happy in a system like that because he's so used to it. Like he's adapted to it.
Yeah.
It's it's an environment that he's that he feels he's more accustomed to because of his own violent nature.
I would agree with you on that, but my main point I wanted to make is I think he feels guilty for what he did about his wife. but I think he has.
And that's a good thing. That's a good thing to see. You know, a rehabilitation process. You know, that works on a guy who did that.
But here's where I don't. Here's where I think maybe he needs to like see a counselor or something. I think he has a really bad temper and a really bad like violent streak in him that he has tried to escape from and tried to hide, and that's what I think you see in the movie. And why I love this movie so much, like.
Yeah.
They don't. So many prison movies try and get you to like all the characters and like they'll say like, "Oh, this guy's a serial killer, this guy's a rapist," but it doesn't matter. Everybody's the same in prison. Nobody, you know, and we never really see those sorts of sides of the character. We see a little bit of watching like Oz or something, but you know, you watch like Gridiron Gang or something. There are rapists and serial killers mixed in there, and mixed with like petty dealers and stuff. But you know, none of that is really. Sorry about that. We had some conversation. None of that is really mixed in with like with none of that is ever really brought up or sort of introduced into it. But this movie, like Chow Yun-fat, he is a good guy. Like we think he's a good guy at the start, but as we go on, we get to see like, oh no, this is why he's in prison. This is why he's the way he is. He definitely has the streak in him. Yes, he probably feels a little bit sorry for what he'd done, but deep down we know like he has this side of him, and if he's pushed like he is in this movie, where he can't like control that side of him, he'll just unleash, and by the end of the movie, he unleashes on Roy Chung, who is this corrupt cop, and I believe he like. Speaking of Reservoir Dogs, I believe he bites his ear off or like basically rips his ear off.
Yeah, that happens. He went
a very intense scene where he jumps across some bunks.
He went Mike Tyson on the guy and just went like, "If I can't win this match, I'll win your ear."
Yeah.
What? Like listening to Roy Chung even scream, like you'd almost think that was genuinely happening.
You almost feel sorry for him in this movie.
You kind of would, especially when it's like, "Look, Chow, buddy, that's taking it a bit far, don't you think so?"
Well, I just always think that like when the movie ends and you see him smiling, and like you almost look at him in a different light.
Yeah.
You almost can't be like happy with him and be like, "Oh, yeah." You almost look at him like, "Oh shit."
Yeah, he's a bit crazy, and that's the sad part, isn't it? Like,
it is sad, but at the same time, you're like, I don't think he should be out of prison at the same time. Like, if he still has that side in him, if he's still... I mean, it does kind of show that maybe he's just been pushed too far as well. But at the same time, I was like, no, that's not even pushed too far. That's like, you have that in you, and you've been pushed too far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
But yeah, is that all you... So this would be your favorite of all of them?
I'd say Prison on Fire would definitely be my favorite out of all of them. So the movie itself is quite well put together. I liked how the not the corrupt system, but really how badly the system was implemented to force a guy who hadn't accidentally killed someone to be put into an environment where he could be killed any time. I really like the corruption that was seen from some of the higher officers who, negotiate with the prisoners, and sometimes these negotiations lead to someone getting killed.
Yeah.
I did like the ending as well, because you finally see, a character finally had all this, can see how badly hurt and broken they are.
Yeah.
And having all that unleashed.
Well, I think both characters kind of snap at the end.
Yeah, they both had enough, and it all depended on how big the bottle was.
But that's what I mean by like you see Tony Non Wong Kai, the other Tony Leung. You see him in this movie, like when he snaps. It's kind of a normal reaction when you think about it. Like, he doesn't necessarily murder anyone like too badly. He's pretty vicious, but he's not like Chow Yun-fat. Like Chow Yun-fat, when you see him, you're like, okay. The first time when you bit up that guy, like that was fine. The end where you're like doing what you're doing, you're like, okay, that's Jesus. So I also enjoyed this movie. What is have you got a least favorite out of the three yet, or are we?
I I liked all three.
You've got one. Okay.
There's we all know what we're going to
we
talk
know what
about
it's gonna
after.
be.
So, shall we move on to School on Fire, or is
We'll
there
get
any
into School
final?
on Fire. So, but before we do, I'm gonna say probably City on Fire is my least favorite, just out of these three that I've seen. And I would say I might actually agree with you. I'm gonna say Prison on Fire is probably the best out of all of these.
Yeah, definitely the
So I'll since I've let's get into School on Fire. So School on Fire is about two girls who get involved with kind of a triad gang after one of them attacks a boy who also just like in Prison on Fire gets run over. He gets hit by a car. This happens actually a lot in the movie. There's a lot of like people getting hit and a lot of people. It's probably the most realistic out of all of these movies.
Yeah, that's agreeable.
Yeah, there's some brutality, but like there's a scene in this movie where someone jumps off a balcony and they're not perfectly fine afterwards. Like they're actually running with like an actual serious limp. One person gets stabbed and shot, and they're like walking like they probably would actually walk with like a limp or a stab. So that's one thing I have to definitely give kudos for. But yeah, there's this triad gang. It's led by Roy Chung, of course, whose brother Smart, as you mentioned a little while ago. And the police want to capture this guy. The school want to get the gang out of the one of the teachers, Mr. Wan, wants to get this criminal organization away from their students, but they're powerless because the police can't get statement from these girls. They don't have any evidence they can use against these criminals. And the school system, just like the principal and everybody else, other than this teacher, Mr. Wan, does not really give a shit about these students. They're more worried about like the grades, how much money they make, how good their school looks, to the point where there's like this one girl who seriously needs help, who just needs another chance, who needs help. And they're just shit to her the whole time. And it is a little bit to do with, I think it does sort of touch on like the school system in Asia and stuff a little bit as well.
It does play on the more, how stressful and how demanding schoolwork and education is, to the point where it might make a few students snap.
Yeah.
And just,
So I don't know if you'd agree with me on this, but I would say this is the darkest of all of the three movies.
Oh no, I completely agree with you. This
the bleakest
is
and darkest out of all
darker than all the rest.
Which it can be. It's not super hard to watch, but it is there are scenes where they're like very there's intense scenes, and there's scenes that are just like kind of disturbing. And the music is very distinct in this. There's a very distinct bagpipe soundtrack that's at the start of this.
Yes. I wanted to ask
makes
about
it really
that.
stand out. I kind of like it.
It's I've also noticed that the bagpipe sounds come across whenever something really horrific is about to happen.
Yeah.
Start of the movie, we see a guy getting stabbed.
Yeah.
Then middle and near the end of the movie, somebody also gets stabbed, and it's the bagpipe sounds really distinct and really makes you.
I think it's good because bagpipes have a very like they get your attention straight away. They're very sharp sound. Like it's very good.
I'll say.
What's interesting about this movie as well, since we've talked about like the On Fire thing. So On Fire, like just those titles alone. Prison on Fire, I don't believe there was an actual fire in that movie. But a lot of the time that doesn't necessarily have to be the thing. But on fire, I think for a lot of these movies can just mean on fire, meaning like everything's going to shit. And this movie is definitely that. There's an actual fire as well, but in a school. So it's, but this movie is everything's going to shit a little bit. You have these two girls. They start off fairly normal. One of them may be like prostituting and doing drugs. And she's dating this really preppy, douchey kid who...
Oh, she was prostituting?
Yeah. Yeah, it's revealed when she gets angry at him later on. She's like very upset, and she's dating this like preppy, douchey bag who has the most punchable face. Like you really want to punch this guy. And and he's the brother of Brother Smart. And basically, it shows how these two girls, as the situation goes on more and more, and they're not even like giving any information to the police at all. But as this goes on, like they get more and more pressure, more and more stress, more and more things happen, and one of the girls ends up sadly dying in a motorcycle accident because she gets dumped by the boyfriend basically cheats on her. She doesn't really know how to deal with it. And then she dies, and then the other girl kind of spirals out as well, takes drugs, prostitutes. Her dad sadly goes. And everybody around her, the two main heroes of this movie really try to help, but they're so powerless.
I never think there's any true hero to this movie. Really, it seems to be just what is it? It seems to be just a lot of antagonists, just struggle at the end of it all. It's a whole bunch of antagonists trying to struggle against each other for the I guess the unfair systems that are in place. There's really no real hero here. It's just, even Brother Smart, he's supposed to be the real villain.
He's definitely not a hero,
But then he has all his underlings who just, commit all these crimes as well. Some of them, say, "Oh, we didn't mean to," and that. But then it's like, why are you following him?
Yeah, well, like brother Scar, who's kind of friends with one of the girls, and they eventually sort of date. He's even kind of a bad guy, but he tries to, get a bit of redemption. And I want to mention the cop action here because he's one of my favorite actors. So the cop is Lam Ching-ying. You've definitely seen him. He's in Mr. Vampire. He's actually a really good martial artist as well. Has been like a really good actor. And it's interesting in this movie because you'd think he'd be like a corrupt cop, or you'd think the cops would be corrupt and this like be paid off because it's almost got that sort of feel. And there is one cop, I believe, in this who they do sort of imply as being paid off. But for the most part, the cops are actually trying to do their job and they just can't. And this movie is so bloody and so gory and dark. There's a lot of knives in this movie.
There's a lot. Yeah. And surprisingly,
a lot of machetes.
No, actually, I've only seen one machete. Everything else is pretty much a big kitchen knife.
Yeah.
Like a really big kitchen knife.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just get stabbed by each other. And it always makes me think, where did you people get these big kitchen knives? Like, there's no way they're commercialized enough.
Well, no, because we see in City on Fire, in the first robbery that they do, they don't use guns in that because they can't legally get guns. It's against the law and a lot. And later on they do, and there's more of a shootout sort of thing. This movie, there's no guns really ever, except for later on. Lam Ching-ying is the only character that has a gun, I believe, in this movie.
Yeah.
Everybody else has like a big knife or something because you're allowed to have kitchen knives and stuff at that time. And one character has a machete at one point. And the ending for this movie is like you go through all of this. Brother Smart just gets less and less unlikable. He even he doesn't force one of the girls into prostitution, but he doesn't deny it or not go against it. And him doing that kind of forces her father to get really angry and ends up getting him killed. And then when we finally get the last two sequences, like the big fight and the what was it? It was like in a dance sort of like a club.
Yeah, it was a club
where she like stabs a guy in the throat or something. Like
Oh no, she stabs she goes to Brother Smart and she stabs him through the shoulder, which I thought to myself, that is a really stupid place to stab someone.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the fight was basically everyone going for the knife to see who'd be the winner.
Well, the rest is them sort of running away, and then they eventually get in this like school building. And he's basically like about to gang rape her. And then Mr. Wan finally, who's like being this teacher who's kind of been trying to hold up his anger, trying to like not unleash him, trying to be a good teacher, but at the same time you can tell he's stressed. This prep boy who eventually at the end actually does have a knife as well and is attacking the police and gets shot by the police. He had been like annoying the teacher for most of the movie. He's just a fume waiting to go off, and you see him just like he basically cuts Brother Smart's arm off, in this scene that's just super intense.
Yeah.
And then Lam Ching Yang finally just like, no, I've had enough of this. Turns the guy around. You think like, oh, he's gonna arrest him, bring him downstairs. His arms, he can't fight. No, shoots him in the back like 6 times, and then like tosses him out the window. And they're like, maybe he'll survive. And then you see the spikes like right outside the window. And you're like, no, he is overkill dead.
They did not show us a scene of him getting stabbed by the
Oh,
spike.
but he's dead. There's no way. Like, you see as well, they come up with everybody being arrested at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And he's the only name that doesn't get shown because clearly he's dead.
Yeah, he's unfortunately no longer of this earth, and we can't sentence the dead to prison. So yeah,
but it's the one part of the movie where you're kind of like, I wanted to see that because I hate this guy like so much. The prep kid didn't need to get shot, but definitely Brother Smart needed to get murdered by the end of the movie. And my only criticism I have of the movie is there is one scene where the girl takes the pills at near the end of the movie, where she's going to burn the library because her friend died and she's very upset. She doesn't want to study anymore. Very good scene, except it's a little bit cheesy the way she takes the pills. She's like takes them out, she's like, ooh, takes them out, like puts it in her mouth, and then like it's a little bit cheesy. But other than that, the movie is pretty good. I don't really have any other complaints with it other than that. It is very bleak, very dark.
Very much so. And it is one of the few movies I've seen where there's no hero, no main character who comes out and says, justice has been served.
Yeah, and all of them kind of get arrested or screwed over by the end of the movie.
Pretty much, yeah.
So yeah, I'll let you now talk about sort of your thoughts on it.
Yeah, those were kind of my thoughts on it. I'd agree with you. It's rather it was really bleak.
Was there anything you didn't like?
Well, there's anything I didn't like. I would say, just how messed up everything was. It does remind me a little bit about how some school systems work. You don't even need to be in a school that's corrupted by the government. There's some schools that take similar actions
where they care more about sort of grades.
Yeah, they care more about the reputation of the school than the students themselves, and they really just kind of overlook some of the students that disrupt the class, and then the reasoning being, the student is blah 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 blah. But it's like, the student's an asshole because he thinks he's big, okay?
Yeah.
Just kick him down the stairs and then let him know he's not big anymore.
So before we get on to the last, there's 2 things I just want to mention as a recap on this. Did you notice that there was a fight in a tea house?
Yes.
Like with the birds?
Yes.
I couldn't help but notice that because that's like a staple of every Hong Kong movie. There's always some fight in like a tea house of birds and shit.
I thought that was a staple of John Woo's
Oh no, it's been a staple of just Hong Kong movies in general. It's been around for ages. So I thought that was kind of funny to see. Other thing we have to bring up, because we've talked about it a little bit, I would say, maybe you agree with me, maybe disagree, I think this has the roughest fights I've seen in any Hong Kong movie ever. Like roughest. Because everybody's just like running around. No one's got like perfect technique or anything. Everybody's just like waggling the knife around, like slashing.
There are a few movies I've seen with similar fights. So
I just mean for Hong Kong, I think, personally.
Same here.
For this era.
Yeah, it definitely is. But that's how most fights will go. Quite a lot of the time. There's no rhyme or reason.
This is not rehearsed. This is not prepped. This is not explosion here, explosion here. This is very much like, no, this is intense. This is like someone not knowing how to swing. This is people just like going for whatever.
Yeah, definitely. There's no rhyme and reason to some of these fights, and just it even comes into play when people start grabbing knives or objects to throw at each other. It's like no longer a fight. It's a
brawl.
It's a life or death WWE match.
It's a brawl. It makes the movie more intense, I think. So now to let Eric suffer for his own hell, because he watched the final, last movie of the On Fire series, sadly before Ringo died, and apparently you said it wasn't good, so I'll let you just talk about this.
Really not. Right, so I've just finished watching, what's the day? On the same day we're actually doing this recording, I've just managed to finish Sky on Fire, mostly because the video player I have would not stop loading every 5 seconds. Anyway, that's my complaint out of the way. So, Sky on Fire. Now, Prison on Fire is a movie about the prison corruption system, what we believe to be. City on Fire is a some corruption in the government and law, and in a city overall.
Mostly the police.
Yeah.
And,
School on Fire, for obvious reasons, corruption in the school.
Yep.
So Sky on Fire is business corruption. Like,
wow.
Genuinely. No, that
you must have loved this job, having worked in several business sort of firms, offices and stuff.
Oh, do not remind me. Anyway, so Sky on Fire is a movie centered around actually three groups of characters. So the first group is a brother sister who are trying to find a way to cure the sister's cancer, which is growing rapidly. The second group is a group of independent mercenaries who try and stop the corruption of the business by stealing their only way of helping cure people of cancer, which they want to weaponize. And the business itself, which is the third group, is corrupt in the way that it wants to use the cure for cancer, which is stem cell research, as a way to weaponize stem cell research instead and make money off of it. So it follows that the apparent corruption came from the director of the company who had killed his mentor to take the stem cell research. It is seriously. It is such a generic explanation. Anyway, long story short, there's a big bad business that wants to use its research for weaponry, and you have two other groups trying to stop them. That is literally what it is.
Yeah.
I do not know. There's it is just wow. Now there's a lot of big differences to this film. So. Big difference is location. Location is in the U.S.
Yep.
Not Hong Kong, the U.S. Second big difference.
There's no U.S. actors in this, though, from what I saw. There's no big name U.S. actors in this. It's all
There really isn't, but
do they speak English and all that?
No, they don't speak English.
What?
No. And okay, the other thing is. And the other big thing is the fact that there is CG used in this movie. Terrible, terrible CG. Yeah. It is an unfortunate black mark on this movie so far. And what's the third thing? Oh, what was the third thing? I almost forgot what the third thing is. Oh, yeah, third thing would be the ridiculous ending. But in any case, this movie, it was just kind of... It's every generic American Hollywood thriller blockbuster film you've ever seen. This is like one of the many repetitions of Die Hard. The bad Die Hard movies.
Yeah.
This is a repetition of every Brad Pitt Mission Impossible movie. This is a repetition of Ocean's
13.
Probably, yeah. I can't remember which Ocean's movie was terrible, but yeah, it's whichever one you think is terrible, it's pretty much in comparison. Sky on Fire was definitely not one of Ringo Lams' best movies, I thought.
Sadly, one of his last movies as well.
Yikes. Yeah, that's not to say that it should be a big black mark on his
He's a great director.
record.
This is just.
We've just talked about 3 of his best works.
And two others I've briefly mentioned are also really good as well.
Yeah. So watching Sky on Fire is a time waster, and it's not something I'd recommend.
Yeah.
It's just... How do I also put this? So you know how the cheesy levels in City on Fire were pretty big?
Yeah.
This is kind of taking it through the roof and just barely seeing it up in the sky.
I'm sorry, but there probably is not the one thing that brings that movie to super cheese, which is a literal sax player outside of a bank while a heist is going on, action scene starts, sax music because there's a sax player outside.
No, it
Super
takes the
80s.
U.S. approach and has someone vocally, having this instrumental vocal piece sung whenever something bad happens.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
When you said that, I was thinking like the overly dramatic, like, and my dog went that day.
No, it's like
In 1942.
No, it's like this. Yeah, that kind of thing. Ugh. So there's that. And it's just
Ave
like
Maria playing in the background.
no, definitely not that, but close.
Yeah.
But it's just, so many things wrong with it. Like there's a lot of plot holes. The relationship between the characters that aren't obvious already don't make any sense. Like consider the sister having some sort of relationship with one of the other characters, but it's like your first conversation was an argument about whether or not the guy looked like a K-pop idol. And then somehow later on, you two are confessing some sort of undying love to each other. Like, what? How? What?
All right. So we are not going to recommend Sky on Fire.
Really not.
But we are going to recommend the free movies.
Yeah, so but basically, some of the things we can... And this is part of the conversation that I've had with Connor not too long back about what the concept of on fire means. So he's mentioned, it doesn't have to be a literal on fire, but the on fire is a concept to mean that something is either burning down or it's just spreading or it's in some way just just something uncontrollable about it. Like we see this in School on Fire, where other than the obvious School on Fire,
it's the characters that don't really have any control.
Yeah, the characters who have no control over the system. Same with Prison and City on Fire. There's almost no control, and things are just burning and just getting out of control. But in Sky on Fire, there's none of that. It is a literal sky on fire because they burned a massive skyscraper building down.
Oh, okay.
Would you like to know how they burned it down?
No thanks.
Take a wild guess. I'll give you 3 guesses.
Let me guess. The printer had a malfunction and the cable shorted.
More ridiculous than that.
The photocopier.
More ridiculous than that.
Someone spilled some water on the back of the fridge plug and that's
more ridiculous than that.
Okay. Oh, someone was smoking in the office and dumped their cigarette in the rubbish bin and then that started the fire.
It was a car bomb.
Really?
So let me just.
What era is this made in? Is this 2000?
So
is this 9/11?
So we know that you know some people who are architects. Now, explain to me this: a long cylindrical skyscraper. Okay.
Yep.
Now, presuming that half the skyscraper will be for offices and administrative staff and all that, the other half seems to be a massive, car park.
Yeah.
With multiple cars that are lifted up and down inside of it.
Wait. You said this movie has no American actors in it. It's just all Hong Kong people.
More or less. There's the main bad guys who's Argentinian.
So the one white person is the bad guy in the movie.
He's not even. I never even knew he was Argentinian. He looks too Asian to be Argentinian.
I was just thinking if they had one black person in the office, they'd be like, "Fuck it."
No, there's no black person in this. They're all mostly Asians.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So there was a car park inside the building.
Yeah.
And so. Somebody put a Looney Tunes style massive bunch of dynamite and a timer onto a car, and then kaboom, blew the building up, setting it on fire.
Sorry. So is everybody in that building when it explodes? Is that the ending? Everybody dies at the end of the movie?
Just the bad guys, yes.
Okay.
But one of the good guys stays behind to make sure that the bad guys.
Of course he does.
No. Just let me finish this up. To make sure that one of the bad guys does not get away, which is a bit of a waste of time because he unloads half a dozen rounds into this guy.
Sorry, my question is, do they actually? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this, but did they actually explain why there's no white people, black people, Hispanic people in this building? Why it's just only Hong Kong people?
I think it must.
Do they say it's like a Hong Kong owned business or something?
I think it is supposed to be set in a Hong Kong place.
I'm surprised Daniel Wu doesn't speak English in the movie.
No.
Because he can speak English really well.
I think back in 2016 it was made in the US, but it all had a Hong Kong setting or like a Asian setting, really.
Okay.
I don't know
Because I was
why.
just a bit confused when you're like, it's set in the US, but there's no one like, because he's worked.
It's a
with
Ringo
Jean-Claude
Lam
Van
movie.
Damme,
I think he's trying to keep more of the Hong Kong
I
influence
know
in it,
but he's done movies of Jean-Claude Van Damme as well.
But I guess just with some of the happenings in Hong Kong, I think he thought it was safer just to join up with Hollywood and go, okay, I want to make a movie. My name is Ringo Lam.
Yeah.
Yep. Nope.
Yep.
Doesn't matter. Your name is enough to get us money.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, in the end of the movie, the last of the good guys who manages to survives by jumping out of a burning building and parachuting down.
Where did he get the parachute?
I do not know.
Okay. You know
Welcome
what
to
this movie
Plot
needed?
Points.
You know what this movie needed that would have made it better?
What?
Nicolas Cage. Because John Woo's Face Off is a terrible movie, but you add Nicolas Cage in there, and it is a fun bad movie at least.
Yeah, I think that
You picture Nicolas Cage being the guy who jumps out of the building with a parachute. Oh, tall ass Nicolas Cage in a suit with a
I'm
terrible
not sure.
mullet. Like,
Yeah, but I'm not sure Nicolas Cage even needs a parachute to get out of a burning building.
what, you think he'd just like jump out and he'd be fine? He does like the
I
superhero
think-
thing, falls with the fist. Like,
I think that in the event of a burning building, he will have to just simply walk down and out.
No, I think he would still jump out of the parachute, but the parachute would have something like.
Oh
silly
God,
on
I'm
the
trying to
back
make
of
a
it.
Ghost Rider reference, and you're just being a blonde
Well, you think
about
it's going
it.
to be a Ghost Rider crossover?
Yes, he ghost rides out of there and make
Eric,
the most
my
sense.
theory is that he's like a vampire or a demon all along, and he just sprouts wings at the end and flies off.
Yeah, that's actually more ridiculous than Ghost Rider.
By the way, I just have to mention this. I read somewhere that Ghost Rider may be introduced in the Blade movie that they're maybe making, or TV series.
Really?
Yeah,
I
that's the way they might introduce Ghost Rider.
That's interesting. I
But
actually
yeah.
do want to see that.
Yeah. But
hope they don't
yeah,
screw it up.
to conclude this episode, so
Yes.
we would recommend the 3 Ringo Lam movies: City on Fire, Prison on Fire, School on Fire. So definitely go check those out if you haven't, or if you have, watch them again. They're great movies. But this has been Alternating with Eric, episode 40. I am Connor.
And I'm Eric. I do
And-
not recommend Sky on Fire.
And you can check our stuff out on YouTube and Facebook.
So our Facebook page is Alternating with Eric, which I have updated very recently with all the content.
Yep.
And the Spotify page, or have you mentioned that?
Yeah,
No.
that is Alternating with Eric as well. I think we're also now on Podcatcher as well, one of those apps. Yeah, sorry, that's what Anchor told me like the other day.
Oh, that is so cool.
So we're on like another streaming thing. We also have a YouTube page, Alternating with Eric. YouTube page. We'll have we have a couple videos that'll be up there at some point. The episodes are up there as well. And then if you want to see what I post on a regular basis and sometimes the episodes, you can check out Insert Connor here. That's where I will post the episodes and some just of what I'm doing in general. Eric, do you have anything else you want to promote or anything else you need to?
Not yet, but I'm hoping sometime later in our line of making podcasts, we'll
You don't have a social media plug you want to, your own social media?
You clearly know I don't do social media, right?
Other than our Facebook, obviously.
Pretty
Check out
much.
Facebook,
But if I ever get onto a platform, I'll definitely promote it and let you guys know
Yep.
about it.
All right. Catch you later.
See ya.